Hello, uh, my name is Lev, and I want to talk to you about Prompt Engineering 101, begin the introduction to LangChain. And before I talk about LangChain, I want to say one word. I'm a bit worried that me wearing this mask might affect your experience. It might be unusual for some people. I have colleagues who rely on lip reading, and they told me this mask helps them. And it helps them, but also moves when I laugh. So for the first 5 minutes, it might feel weird, but be patient, and in 5 minutes, you'll be used to it. Just bear with me. OK, so let's talk about LangChain. So this is the agenda of my talk. First, I'll give a general overview why there's so much hype about LangChain, general introduction to the LLM ecosystem. After that, I'll deep dive into one code example, which I played with. Then I'll talk about evaluating models created with LangChain. And finally, I'll talk about briefly the future of this library. So why there's so much hype around LangChain? This library is 6 months old, and it's already raised 10 million as a seed investment this month. And this is the star graph, getting from 0 to 25,000 stars in 6 months. That's pretty cool. Like, it reminds about the early days of Hugging Face or Rasa or similar open source success stories. And I would like to explain why is there so much hype about it, in my opinion. So life before the invention of fire was very hard. And building models before invention of LLM was hard. I had to hire a database manager to create my data warehouse. Then I had to hire an ML engineer to build my models. Then I had to label data with some experts. Maybe it will take a month for my ML engineer to build the model. Then I have to hire ML ops person to serve it. And finally, I have some kind of prototype which I could show to potential 20 users. That's how it was before. And now is this Gutenberg moment, the invention of the printing press. Your LinkedIn feed is full of this stuff. How now we're in this post-LLM world and everything is super easy. And nowadays, you just call OpenAI or Cohere AI or some other API, write a bit of natural language text, maybe tune it a little bit, connect your own corporate documents or give it the context of your mobile application, and you get to a prototype. So you already have something you can play with. Yes, it's flimsy, but it's already a prototype. And this is the magic. This is why your LinkedIn feed is full of this stuff. And you play with it, and it kind of breaks. And that's when it gets hard. To make it not break, you actually have to label data, just like in the old times. You actually have to retrain your model, just like 6 months ago you had to. And then you get to V2. And then you get more users, and you need to get all this continuous user feedback. Every time you say OpenAI thumbs up or thumbs down, or to your GitHub Copilot, the product improves for that company and for everybody. And you have to have some way to do reinforcement learning on this data. So the old times were hard, like rolling a rock up the mountain, collecting data, hiring ML, labeling data, building the model, serving the model, just to get to the prototype. That was hard from the very beginning. And after the invention of fire and the printing press and LLMs, it's a bike ride, There's this icon of the bike for something which is easy. To get to your V1, which is a flimsy prototype, it's very easy. And after that, life gets hard. So the first orange part you can even now do in TypeScript if you want. You don't even need to know Python to do machine learning prototype in 2023. But don't worry, there's still jobs in this V2, in the green parts on the bottom. Labeling data, retraining your models, getting continuous user feedback. There's still jobs for everybody who's in Python data science. Just this part became easier. There's more philosophy, and after that, we'll move to code. So there's a saying that during a gold rush, sell shovels. What does it mean? If there's a valley, and suddenly 3 or 4 people find gold in that valley, these first people, they get rich. The prices of gold are high. This is what would happen if you started a generative music startup 5 years ago, or generative text 2 years ago. These are the people who benefit a lot from that, people who first got there. And what's the second stage of the gold rush? Is millions of people coming to the valley, Everybody gets a small plot and starts digging. And maybe they find gold, maybe not. The prices of gold are getting lower, so it's not so clear. However, everybody who has a plot needs a shovel. And it has to be a shovel, like it has to be something which anybody can use. And LangChain is slowly becoming this kind of shovel. And shovel in a good sense, it's not like a bad thing. Like a good shovel is good, much better than my hands. Just something that anybody can pick up in Python or in JavaScript and create the first prototype. So this is my explanation for the hype around LangChain, that it is a shovel during a gold rush. And of course, if you want to move to V2, you need to find an excavator driver, like most of us in this room are drivers of these excavators. And then we need to label data, fine-tune it, get it to V2, make reinforcement learning to V3. And in V3, it actually becomes golden, because that's hard to reproduce. V1 is just a LLM on a prompt. Anybody can do this. Like, there's no way to defend my business if my business relies on just one prompt. However, if I invested all this stuff in my excavator infrastructure, that becomes a real business model. And that's where the gold is actually in V3. Cool. So let's move to a code example. There's a notebook relating to this talk, if you want to look at it. And of course, the live demo gods, they think they'll miss some errors if you look at the repo now, but in an hour it will be better. Of course, like, you can't rely on OpenAI API. So the example that I decided to play with is the question, when is the PyCon in PyData Berlin 2023 conference? And how many days are between that date and today? And I allowed the model to use internet and the Python REPL. Okay, so this is the code extract on the left. It says tools, load tools, the API for search engine, and then a LLM math, which is a thing that takes in text and creates Python code to answer math questions. And I create an agent, my agent initialize agent with the tools and my LLM. The kind of agent is called zero-shot React description, which is links to the React library, React paper. There's a paper called React, published by a group of researchers. And LangChain did what open source is supposed to do. They took this academic code and made it into nice Python with types and classes, something which you could actually want to use. That's one of the great things that made LangChain become so popular, is re-implementation of this React paper. And here I'm using tools and agents. So these are the fundamental concepts of LangChain, difference between tool and agent. Tool is something deterministic. Every time I call it, I get the same result. For example, Python REPL. I type, print hello world, it prints hello world every time. Or sending an email. The same thing happens every time. And it's very easy to actually add new tools to LLM. I just tell to the prompt, hello LLM, this is a calculator. Calculator, it's useful for when you need to answer questions about math. And it just starts using calculator for that. That's pretty awesome. The new thing is the agent. And agents are non-deterministic. They make their own decisions. It's not clear what's going to happen every time you call it. They have agency, autonomy. Like, every time I search Google, the results might change. This is not a very good example of an agent, but the agent that tells me, when do I have time in my schedule? Or when should I call my mother next time? It decides it for me. And I outsource some of my decision power to that. All the important decisions that you have in your life. And there's this new trend of companies called agent as a service, AAAS. So like, if you want to raise more money, just say you're doing agent as a service and you'll do better. Cool, so let's see how well does this thing work. So the answer that I got from this piece of code is that PyCon PyData Berlin 2023 conference is on 16th of January, 12 noon CET, and there are 45,000 days between that date and today. Like, sounds very logical. If I put into Google PyCon and PyData Berlin 2023 date, the first answer I get is 16th of January, noon CET. It just goes to this page and gets it. That's how Google parsed this page. And okay, I can blame it on Google. That's why it doesn't work. But why is it 45,000 days? And I mean, we all use datetime library many times. And in datetime library, if you say 16th of January and don't specify any year, what do you get? 1900, exactly. So between 1900 and today, it's 45,000 days. So it's a very nice answer, almost right, but no cigar. And this is like V0.5, maybe it's not quite V1, but it's like getting there. And the question is, how hard is it to get from this to V1? That's what LangChain promises me to do, to tune this retrieval and prompt engineering. Let's see what's happening there. So let's look under the hood. This is a tracing of the calls which are made to OpenAI. I'll show the interactive UI in a second. So you can see there are many steps. They are grouped together as a tree. So you have the big search agent demo as the root of the tree. It shows it cost me 3 cents to do this complicated research. That's how much money I paid to OpenAI. There's an engine executor as the next source. There's a call to the OpenAI API, asking it to answer the question. Then I call a search engine API. Then I go back to OpenAI. I do the Google search again. Then I go back to OpenAI again. Then I generate some Python code, again using OpenAI. And finally, I get to the final answer in the last thing. So there are many calls in here. And it's nice to look under the hood what is happening. So give me a second. So yeah, this is more interactive version of this viewer. So let's start with the main prompt. Answer the following questions as best as you can. You have access to the following tools: search and calculator. And I describe briefly what they are. And I say which format to talk to me because I actually parse the outputs which come into me. You can ask it to talk to you in text. You can ask it to talk to you in JSON. And you can use like Pydantic to parse output of LLM, for example, if you want to. And of course, it will fail because it's a LLM sometimes. And the question I'm asking it, when is the conference? How many days are between the date and today? And the output is, I need to find the date of the conference, calculate the number of days between the date and today. Okay, intelligent thing to say. Action, search. And search for this PyConT in PyData Berlin 2023. So we go to the search, and this is just a simple API that returns me the first thing on Google. And the first thing on Google is like, we aim to be an accessible, community-driven, okay. OpenAI says, I need to look at a more specific result. I need to search for date. Logical? Yeah. Let me do the live demo. Yeah, this is the output in the end. Sounds pretty reasonable to me. So let's see what happens if we search for the date. We get 16th of January, noon. That's what Google decided is the date of the conference. Okay, so now we move to the next step. I need to calculate the number of days between this date and today, call my friendly calculator, and this is the input to the calculator. Cool, how does it work? Translate a math problem into Python code. This is the example prompt that I give it to. And it's a few short learning, so I have actually some examples in here, which I give it one example. What is this thing? Let's see what kind of code it generated. So this is a Python code generated. I would probably write the same, actually, and make the same mistake of datetime as it's doing. And yeah, so I can relate. And the number you get is 45,000, and the final thing is, yeah, this is the final answer. Like it says, I now know the final answer. The final answer is this. And this is parsed by LangChain under the hood. And yeah, given to me as the final answer here. This kind of interactive tracing is very nice. Like, at least I can see where I spend my money, how many calls I made in there. However, like, I tried to improve based on this feedback, and I couldn't get there. Like, because prompt engineering is quite tricky. It's not like, you know, tuning with gradient descent. It's like very nonlinear. You change one little thing, and then the answer changes a lot. And, you know, for V1 it's probably okay, but I wouldn't build like the whole product based on this right now. So what I showed you so far, if I just give it the tools of Google and Python math, I get wrong conference date, but correct today's date. At least I get correct today's date. Then I crawled the website of PyCon.de, and I gave it as a tool, just answer questions about PyCon.de using this index to LangChain. And it managed to find correct conference date. I was very impressed. However, today's date, it just forgot what it is. Like, it just gave me some date, like, you know, a year ago for some strange reason, or like, you know, a year and a half ago even. And I don't know why. Just everything was the same, just an extra tool added, and it suddenly lost the ability to find out today's date. So I thought, okay, maybe I'll give it another tool to be better at dates. So I gave it a Python way to find out today's date. And today's date was correct, but the conference date it stopped doing for some reason. That thing fell through. Maybe it needs to break down tasks into smaller things. So I gave it a baby AGI, like a to-do list generator. And that thing just went on some kind of tangent, talking about conference food and like how you need to book a venue. And that was really annoying. So I couldn't really get it to work so easily, but it was fun. And I felt the rush. I felt the gold rush, you know. the gold rush experience is definitely there. Not sure about the product, but this is how far I have gotten. Let me talk about the evaluation. It's very nice to evaluate results with GPT. And GPT-4 is almost as good as this generic person whom you pay, you know, $20 an hour on Mechanical Turk to do like generic questions, like how good is the summary? You know, does this answer this question correctly or not about this short piece of text? This kind of generic questions, which require just knowledge of English or German, they are pretty much done by GPT-4. Yeah, there's no more boring automation. However, there's a lot of expert annotation left to do for people. You know, if you're a radiologist or a lawyer, it will be much easier for you to give feedback with this kind of fast evaluation. Yeah, and there were talks about this at this conference. So I asked GPT to evaluate its own answers. And it's quite easy to do with LangChain. So, and I said, you are a teacher grading a quiz. The correct answer is 17th of April, and there are -2 days. That's how I think. There are -2 days from start of the conference. Maybe it's -3, like, okay, whatever. That's the correct answer. And this is the answer from a student. Give it a grade and explain why it's wrong. And here's the explanation at the bottom. It says grade is 0 out of 10. It says first check the date of the conference. Your date is wrong. And then check the number of days between the conference and today. That is quite nice. It's strange that GPT is good at grading. If you say it like graded from 0 to 10, that's fine. But if you ask it like which one answer is better, it always chooses the first one. It has this like recency bias, just like the same way. If you ask me like which one do I want to buy, I always take the one closest to me. So it's very kind of human bias behavior of this. But grading, just grade on a scale, that works quite well. Cool. The future of LangChain. So there is a parallel package to Python LangChain called LangChain.js, and it allows front-end devs to build ML product V1. And don't worry, you still need Python for V2 and V3. I played with this TypeScript library to integrate it with Zoom SDK, and when I do like some live sessions with clients, it somehow gives me advice, what they're saying and what I should say to them. It's kind of fun. Yeah, and I don't know any TypeScript, of course, like Copilot told me how to do this. There is production support by LangChain. It's a new library. I'm not sure if I would put into production. There are other more experienced libraries for question answering, which are here at this conference, been around for a couple of years. I would rather use them than LangChain, but you can pay them for production support if you want. And of course, they'll be implementing papers. Like every academic paper that comes out has very nice code in LangChain. That team is really good at that, making these papers much more accessible and tinkerable that way. And of course, there'll be more agents, more document retrievals, input formats. You can send it JSON, you can output it JSON, and do the type checking on that, and retry if it's wrong. Yeah, cool. What else is there? So let me talk more about go back to the evaluation. There's a very nice package called AutoEvaluator. So if you have a collection of documents and you want to answer questions about it, and they are more than the context window of 10 pages as we have now, I mean, it will be 50 pages soon, but you cannot put more than that. So if you have 200 pages in your corporate document store and you want to ask questions about it, you need to use something. LangChain is something you can use for that. And there are many parameters you can tune there, and it's not clear which ones are better. And there's this package called AutoEvaluator, which creates the exam for your model with correct answers, then also runs that exam with the model, and then grades how good it is at answering that. So it basically generates correct questions to your knowledge base and with correct answers, and then evaluates the whole thing by itself. So you don't really need to annotate anything. You already know how good is your evaluation, your QA tool at your knowledge base. Yeah, have a look at that for a bit. Cool. So yeah, this is my final slide. I run this meetup where we do ensemble programming and TDD. It's called Berlin Data Crafters. So like next week, it's online, and we will talk more about LangChain and trying to learn it together with TDD, which will be interesting to see how that works. Thank you.
Wow, that was well within time or on time. So we have a couple of questions on the Slido, so I'll go through each of them. So the first one would be, can you talk about the origins of LangChain and why do you think it gained so many users quickly?
Yep. So it was one of the few packages which are using LLMs, like back in October. And I think what really helped it is implementing this React paper, which is how to introduce tools to our LLM. And this is basically this prompt, what I'm showing you here. And you can add any kind of tools to it that you want. Search, calculator, corporate store, document index, anything like this. And taking it from research code into nice Python code, I think that made it very popular. Yeah, but it's a bit surprising. Like, for example, for question answering, if I Google question answering with LLM, I find LangChain instead of Haystack, which is like a small, which was a Berlin, like more established 3-year-old company. So I don't know why.
The second one would be, what are your views on tools like Prompt Perfect for prompt optimization?
Yeah, Prompt Perfect is cool. And like, it gives you ideas, but it's not like guaranteed to work. So Prompt Perfect is a way to use like LLM to optimize your prompt. But it's like for me, when I'm stuck, it gives me some ideas, but then I still have to try them. It doesn't solve it completely for me. Any more?
Yeah, several actually. Which version of GPT did you use for your experiments? 3.5 Turbo or 4?
This is a Text DaVinci 3. That is the easiest one that comes with LangChain. Yeah, the default one that LangChain uses.
Could you have improved the result in your example if you added check if the result you gave gives a plausible number of days?
Ah, yeah, like that kind of automating grading, like is it a plausible result or not? That would be quite nice, but I haven't tried this formulation plausible. Yeah, but I haven't actually, yeah, I don't know if GPT knows what plausible is in its own world.
So the next question would be, what performance metric should I code for my agent as a service product?
Yeah, like performance metrics. You mean like latency or, you know, like how good it is. How good it is. Exactly. So how good am I at answering for question answering, there are clear metrics, like which have been around for a while, and you can grade it like this. Depends on your problem. Like what is your problem? What do you care about? It's a bit like evaluating any kind of machine learning model. The best metrics are the user-facing metrics, except this one is a non-deterministic.
The next one, what framework do you recommend for production use?
Depending on your problem. Yeah, for Q&A, I would use Haystack, even though, yeah, I don't work for them. And I don't work for LangChain either. It's more like, last week we had a bunch of people cancel the talks, and we in programming committee decided to give our own talks. So I got a chance to talk about something I enjoyed tinkering with. More?
Oh yeah, there are more. So are you using GPT-4? For that reason, are you paying for requests?
For what?
Are you paying for your requests, GPT-4?
I mean, I'm paying for my request to DaVinci. Like, you see it's like 3 cents here. That's how much I'm paying. I have access to GPT for chat, but I don't have access to GPT for API, like the 8,000 token thing. I don't have it. And I don't know anybody who has 32,000. Does anybody have access to 32,000 GPT-4 here? Okay. No time travelers.
Before we take more questions, is the second speaker, Luis Fernando Alvarez, here? Okay. Then we could cut short. Last 2 questions. And so is there something LangChain does well?
Like this agent thing, like this really does it pretty well, better than anybody else. Like if you say it, you know, do this task as best as you can, that's what it does really well. The whole agent thing. If you want to talk for like Notion and put it into some kind of weird database, there are already loaders for that. Like it has like 100 different loaders for different documents and output formats. So yeah, this diversity is definitely there. The community is gigantic. Like if you come to a webinar on LangChain, there's like 3,000 people there.
So this would be the last question. How you run the traces UI interface?
Yeah, see the notebook, like this link in this repo, there's a way to run it there. It's a nice visualizer. It's not the default visualizer of LangChain. Somebody else created it with this ICE library, Interactive Composition Explorer. Yeah, but I really like it more than the default tracer. Cool. Thank you.
So seems like